This is our community's house. We are all guests in it here to serve our community. My name is Mike Little, Mayor of the District of North Vancouver, and the pleasure falls to me to welcome you all here to our regular meeting of council for Monday, July 13th at 7 o'clock. I'd like to start off in a good way. Councillor Murray has offered to read our land acknowledgement in a moment.
Thank you, Mayor Little. We respectfully acknowledge the original peoples of these lands and waters, specifically the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam, on whose unceded ancestral lands the District of North Vancouver is located. We value the opportunity to learn, share, and serve our community on these unceded lands.
Thank you very much, Councillor Murray. Council, we have an agenda that's been circulated with the package. I do have two minor amendments I'd like to put forward. One would be that item 8.1 has been withdrawn at this point. It's not ready yet for this stage. And item 8.9, I'd like to move forward to right after 8.5, since those two items are actually connected and should be heard together. With that, that's all. I'll move the amendment, or sorry, I'll move the agenda with those changes. Is there a seconder on the agenda? Seconder, second by Councillor Murray. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded. Motion is carried. Council, we have 4 sets of meeting minutes that have been circulated with the packages of the May 4th, 2026 regular meeting minutes, the June 15th special council meeting, the June 22nd special council meeting, and the June 23rd public hearing. Are there any errors or omissions from those meeting minutes as presented? Hearing none, it's been moved by Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder on the matter? Second by Councillor Forbes. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded. Motion is carried. Great. Council, we have a period of up to 30 minutes at the front end of regular meetings that we set aside for input from the public. This is on issues of concern that people in our community have raised. And so we do have a speakers list that's started, but once we're done with those 3 speakers, I'll look to the room to see if anybody else would like to add their comments, or our virtual participants as well. So at this point, the first person I'm going to invite up is Mason Leung, joining us here in person. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Mayor Little, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Manson Leung, and I'm speaking on behalf of Metro Vancouver Housing in support of the issuance of development permit 44.25 for Riverside affordable housing. I would first like to acknowledge and thank District Council and staff for their long-standing commitment to this project. This project has been years in the making. In 2021, the district rezoned this site specifically to support affordable housing, and subsequently submitted it to Metro Vancouver Housing through an expression of interest process. Riverside was selected to move forward, and since then, district staff and Metro Vancouver Housing have worked closely together to advance the planning and design needed to bring this project before you today. Riverside affordable housing represents the type of partnership needed to address the housing challenges facing our region. When complete, the project will provide 81 non-market rental homes for people who are increasingly struggling to find housing they can afford. These homes will serve a broad range of residents, individuals with disabilities, families, seniors, and others who need stable and affordable housing in the community they call home. Importantly, the project will provide a range of affordability levels, including rent geared to income homes for households with the greatest need, and low end of market rental homes that will remain at below market rates over the long term. The project also supports healthy, connected, and inclusive communities. Residents will benefit from shared indoor and outdoor amenities, accessible design features, active transportation options, and a location close to parks, transit, services, and everyday amenities. Riverside affordable housing will also be among the first projects delivered through Metro Vancouver Housing's participation in the Digitally Accelerated Standardized Housing, or DASH initiative. Through standardized design, digital tools, and prefabricated building components, DASH helps improve efficiency, reduce costs, and accelerates the delivery of non-market housing. Most importantly, this project transforms publicly owned land into a lasting community asset. It advances the district's housing objectives and provides a tangible response to the need for affordable housing on the North Shore. On behalf of Metro Vancouver Housing, I'd like to thank Council and District staff for their collaboration and leadership. We respectfully ask Council to support the issuance of Development Permit 44.25 and help move Riverside affordable housing one step closer to becoming a reality. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Manson Leung. Next speaker I have is Clayton Wellwood, joining us here in person. Welcome. When you come, we have 3 minutes to address Council.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. So I'm here speaking to follow up on an email that I sent to Council back on March 16th. And this is regarding utility rates in the District of North Vancouver. So specifically water and sewer rates. So my understanding is that some properties in the district have transitioned to metered rates, which is great. However, the majority of properties are still on a flat rate system, and there's a kind of an inequity, as I see it, between what apartment dwellers and condo dwellers are paying for water and sewer rates versus what residents in detached houses are paying. So the way that I've understood the numbers is that a family in a detached home that may have many bedrooms and yard and multiple kitchens, etc., is only paying about 20% more under this flat rate structure than an apartment dweller, somebody who lives in a condo. That's an average. Obviously, there's maybe more play between the rates. However, if we compare to other municipalities, we see that gap between the detached homes that use more water and the apartment dwellers is actually much larger. So the city of North Vancouver, the gap is around 64%. So meaning the detached home dweller is paying 64% more than the apartment dweller. In city of Burnaby, it's about 133% difference. So if we were to look at this as a tax, and we would say it's a regressive tax in that regard, because the apartment dwellers, condo dwellers who typically have less wealth, less income are bearing a larger brunt of this rate system. So what I'm curious to know from Council is the transition to metering. Is there a plan in place for that? Is there a timeline? Is there progress that you'd be willing to share on that transition? And then in the meantime, is there a plan to address this inequity in the flat rate structure? Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker I have is Sean Dakota. Is that the virtual participant? There we go. Virtual participant, just getting connected to the panel. Sean Dakota, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, I can hear you. Hi.
Welcome.
Hello.
When you're ready, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. My name is Sean Dakota. I'm a resident of the District of North Vancouver. I live at 915 Calverhall Street. I wanted to discuss the nuisance and abatement bylaw, something that I was a subject to about a month ago or 2 months ago. I have a shipping container in my backyard, which is not a permanent fixture. It is a temporary fixture. It is a rental shipping container. I have some building materials that are inside there that I'm essentially getting rid of in about 12 months' time. And I was given a ticket for this, and I spoke to the bylaw officer, and she said that I should bring this up with council because they've run across this issue multiple times. And I went and read the bylaw, and I can see that it covers the whole gamut of issues when it comes to things accumulating in people's homes from the front yard to the backyard. But the bylaw is applied inconsistently, I suppose, because I mean, I drive through my neighborhood and I see people with boats and trailers and debris and garbage. And then it seems that if I'm being targeted, that doesn't seem right. And of course, this was not something that it was ran across randomly. The shipping container is within my property line. It doesn't interfere with anyone else's usage. And it is tucked away behind a fence, but people, I guess somebody decided to complain. But I've looked at the other sections in that same bylaw, and there are, I mean, if you just drive through the district on any day, you will see 100 different lots that are contravening on that. I just wanted to sort of find a way to amend this bylaw so that when something is temporary and I give a date that it could be removed, that should be taken into account.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments, Sean Dakota. Would anybody else like to address the council meeting? Mr. Sadler, come on down.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Dave Sadler, Roche Point Drive, North Vancouver. Okay. I'm going to address the possibility of a earthquake in North Vancouver. Dying in a plane crash over the next 50 years, odds are 100,000 to 1. Dying in a car crash over the next 50 years, the odds come down to 150 to 1. Now, I know you've all seen photographs of the rubble in Caracas. On the
you overhead. We just got to turn that on. It'll just be a sec.
Gonna turn it on?
Yeah, it's coming on. Just give it a moment. There you go.
Oh, you can enlarge it, I guess. There, okay. So I know you've all seen photos of Caracas and the piles of rubble from their recent 7.2 magnitude earthquake, but this is a photo of Waira, a town that's located 10 miles away. So 7.2 is big, and it doesn't confine itself to one small area. This is a 52-page district publication, When the Ground Shakes, which in fact our head planner, Mr. Dan Milburn, claims to have worked on. It's a somewhat scary publication, especially regarding the complete devastation red zone along the district waterfront and resulting liquefaction. Vancouver sits on the Cascadia subduction zone, and Natural Resources Canada and the Geological Survey of Canada forecast a 20 to 30% chance of a 7.2 earthquake in the next 50 years. Now, that's not 1,000 to 1, it's not 100 to 1, 50 to 1, but 5 to 1, a 20% chance. And that makes me really scared. I expect council to take appropriate steps to protect the lives of your district residents. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Dave Sadler. Would anybody else like to address council? And virtual participants, if you want to raise your virtual hand. I don't see any virtual hands. Okay. All right. Well, we'll carry on with this evening's meeting. We do have a full one for you. And yes, don't be daunted by the 1,000-page package there. About 500 pages is a new proactive disclosure that we do. Council receives reports on the go all the time. And so we've decided that every quarter, we're just going to make sure those just get out into the public sphere as a proactive disclosure. And tonight's the night for this quarter. In this case, it's an exception at 500 pages just for that disclosure. When you reduce the adoptions and the of all of the correspondence, it's a much more manageable 330,000 or 330 pages. Yes, that's where I'm at. So much more manageable level for us. Okay, so we have adjusted those two things. So item 8.1 was withdrawn. So I'm going to move on to item 8.2. This is rezoning bylaw 8736 for a 46-unit townhouse at 3374 to 3380 Mount Seymour Parkway, 2 unaddressed lots fronting MSP, and 3382 to 3396 Gaspe Place. This item is up for adoption, meaning council has already advanced it from second and third. So there is no debate. Prepared to call the question. I'll move the matter. Is there a seconder on the matter? Seconded. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary mind. Motion is carried with councillors Hanson and Murray opposed. The next item up for discussion is item 8.3, bylaw 8741, proposed partial highway closure and dedicated removal, 3300 block Mount Seymour Parkway and Gaspe Place. Highway closure bylaw 8741 2025, obviously related to the previous item. Again, this item is up for adoption. I'll be moving the recommendation, second by Councillor Ma. Prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried with Councillors Hanson and Murray opposed. Next item up for discussion is development permit 17.24 for 3374 to 3380 Mount Seymour Parkway and 3382 to 3396 Gaspe Place. And this is for a development permit to be issued. The item is up for debate. So is there a recommendation? Councillor Ma, you'll be moving the staff recommendation. Okay, is there a seconder on the matter? Also, okay, Councillor Back. Councillor Ma, your comments, please. No comments. Okay, Councillor Back, any comments? Yeah, this is a very, very tricky property. We have had earlier considerations for this space because of the trail access that's there and this odd little street, which I know is beloved by the neighbors and residents who live on the street. We hear from them on the regular, but it is a bit of a different standard. We don't normally have a small one block cul-de-sac come off such a major road. We just don't have a lot of instances of that. And so access and egress from the street is a challenge, and adding density to streets like that, accessing and egressing onto a major street is a challenge. But this has been a long time in the works, and I will be supportive of this project. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to the matter? Prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. And the permit is issued. The next item up for discussion is development permit 44.25 Riverside Affordable Housing. And do we have staff commenting? Mr. Maselli's going to. Oh,
yeah. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to make some short introductory remark for this DP application, if I may.
Please.
And I'm just waiting for the slide to show on the screen here. So for thank you. So for council's consideration here tonight is development permit 44.25 to permit the development of affordable housing project on Riverside Drive, containing 81 affordable rental units in a 6-story building. Tonight is for the issuance of a development permit for this project, which is the combination of multi-year effort by staff, Metro Van Housing, and council to secure affordable housing in the district. Starting in 2021, council directed staff to explore developing affordable housing on district-owned sites, including this one. Next slide, please. And And this district-owned site is located in the Maplewood Village Center with frontage on Riverside Drive and vehicle access off of Old Dollarton Road. Amenities at the Northwood Village is just 5 minutes walk away. In December 2021, after a public hearing, council approved the OCP and rezoning for this affordable housing project for this site. At that time, the building hadn't been designed. Next, please. Now, at this DP stage, the built form and unit mix have now been finalized. And on the screen shown here are the key stats of the project. Design for this project has been challenging due to the high water table. It is part of the creek hazard DPA. So staff and the design team at Metro Housing have been working together to find a good solution. And in the end, 59 vehicle parking spaces are able to be secured in the P1 level. The building expression has also been improved over the course of the DP review process to meet the form and character development permit area guidelines and to provide active facade frontage on both Riverside Drive and vehicle access from the new lane. Shown here is a perspective as seen from Riverside Drive. And also, in addition, the site is subject to the Green Building DPA. So it has been designed to Energy Step Code 3 with emission level 3. Next, please. In terms of affordability, this information is provided for council information only. It is not part of the development permit application process, but this information was not available at rezoning, so it is useful to share at this time. So 15% of the units, which is 12 units, would be secured, rent geared to income at income assistant flat rate. And then the suggestive rent are shown on the slide. Another 12 unit rent geared to income will be secured at 30% of the household income level based on BC Housing Hills rate for the area. And then the remaining 57 units would be secured at low end of the market, which is about 10 to 20% below market rents. All rents will be secured in the ground lease since the district owns the site. Next slide, please. In terms of public process, usually there will be no additional community consultation at development permit stage. However, for this project, the development permit application was presented to the community for another round of consultation since the rezoning was several years ago and prior to knowing the housing operator and building design. Feedback included support for the affordable housing. Concerns included the amount of parking and tree loss on the site. I may have the next slides, please. So the site is subject to the Protection of Natural Environment DPA. And also, since this is a district-owned site, staff see protection and replacement of on-site trees as an important policy objective, along with the delivery of affordable housing. So the proposed work will include treatment of invasive species on site, careful tree removal and replacement to create a new forest edge around the development site. This slide is an illustration of the potential new edge, showing with the green dots along the edge of the site. I just want to go over what was described in the staff report for tree replacement strategy for the site. First, the known hazardous trees will be removed. And second, trees within the new lane and development site will also be cleared, and those will be the red circles on the slides. And then the arborist will lay out the new forest edge, and we think at this point that the new trees, they're shown in green, sorry, not the new trees, the green trees, the green dots, the round circle shown on the slides will be able to be retained, but it will really depend on professional review of the trees at that time, a later stage. And Metrovan Housing is also exploring opportunities with Squamish Nation for the use of the felled trees. So overall, a 1-for-1 replacement ratio for the tree removed will be achieved by planting new trees on site, by new trees within the boulevard area, and then new trees within natural parkland in consultation with our forestry staff. The last one, please. So in closing, staff have evaluated this affordable housing proposal against applicable DPA and found the proposal generally complies. Therefore, we're recommending DP be issued. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, looking for your direction on the matter. I'll be moving the staff. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Pope. Thank you. Is there a seconder on the matter? Councillor Ma. Go ahead, Councillor Pope, your comments, please.
I wholeheartedly support this project, and thank you to the previous council for getting this moving. We know that in the District of North Vancouver, we urgently need affordable housing. We've known this for some time, and we need to be doing everything we can to advance it, to take care of the people in our community who need it, but also to support the working people in this community who can't afford to live here, so they have to commute across the Second Narrows Bridge every day, adding to the congestion. And also, another long-term problem I think we're going to see is that caregivers will soon not be able to. There will be a shortage, as we've heard from the seniors advocate, there will be a shortage of caregivers in the future because increasingly they absolutely cannot afford to live here either. So for all of these reasons, we need exactly this kind of range of income affordability that's being provided here. And I just want to note from an email that Kelly Bond sent us today, a resident in North Vancouver who is with the North Shore Affordable Task Force and has been a strong advocate for affordable housing. She gave me permission to just quote it, which is, she says, suitable public land is scarce, and every viable opportunity to build affordable housing should be carefully protected and advanced, not judged against an unrealistic ideal. When the district has an opportunity to use publicly owned land to create homes that will remain affordable for decades, that opportunity should be viewed as a long-term public investment rather than simply another development proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ma.
Thank you. I support these 81 units of affordable housing for a community that's being built and managed by Metrovan. And these units include 2 and 3 bedrooms. So they will be used by families. There are RGI units, rent geared to income, as well as low end of market. So that will also help with affordability. Now, parking. The 59 parking spaces with a ratio of 0.73, they're normally acceptable in cases for affordable housing. But I think we just need to be mindful that the Maplewood area is growing fast and parking is and will continue to be a challenge. Notwithstanding that, overall, I support the staff's recommendation to issue a DP.
Thank you, Councillor Ma. Just some of my own comments on the matter. First, just a question of staff. So the 2 groupings of 12 units that are at the lowest level, they seem to be directed towards a PWD credit or person with disability credit, about how much that person would make a month on a housing credit. Are those units specifically held for people who qualify for a PWD credit? Or are they possibly a larger group of potential clients within Metro Vancouver that would qualify for that?
I think this is a appropriate question for the applicant who is still in chamber, if I may.
Manson Leung, if I could call you back up again. Question is about the accessible units, or sorry, the low cost units. They appear to be geared towards a PWD credit. Is that the case, and will they be restricted to people who qualify for a PWD credit?
The rent geared to income units in the project are specifically going to be through the BC Housing Registry as part of the funding agreement as a funding partner on this project. So they're not specifically restricted. However, they all applicants are going to be obtained through the BC Housing Registry.
Okay. 5 of the units are set to an enhanced accessibility standard. Will those units be held for people who have those needs?
Thank you. Yes, generally we would give priority to folks that need the accessibility features and needs of those units. However, if we are unable to find, then we will definitely sort of have another tenant come in place that is able to sort of use those facilities still.
Oh, well, it's not a reason to hold up the development permit, but I think I will still talk to Metro Vancouver and try to get that ratio up as much as we can and make sure that those accessible units go to people who have accessibility needs, and that those particularly deeply discounted units go to people who qualify under the PWD, person with disability credit, because I can't say enough how hard it is for them to be able to find housing in the that matches the credit they get from the provincial government. It's just not readily available except in SROs in the downtown east side. Mm-hmm. And I think that people who have a PWD credit should get more than just a fair crack at the units that are set aside for that purpose under the finance. So I'll be carrying on that conversation with the chair of the housing committee with Metro Vancouver, Dan Rumi. I will just say, I just want to tip the hat to Metro Vancouver. When you look across their organization, they can be very proud of the Metro housing program that they carry out. It's entirely self-funded, and the quality of life there is excellent. The reputation is excellent in the spaces that their Metro Vancouver continues to be a good landlord through that process. So in 2018, when I ran for election, one of the things I committed to was to get a Metro Vancouver housing project in North Vancouver. That seems like a long time ago. And so this is our first project of this nature with Metro Vancouver Housing in the District of North Vancouver. Very proud to see this project come through to fruition. Obviously, the massing issue, probably would have preferred on Riverside to be a little shorter on the west side of the project, just so it's more in keeping with the area around it. But I think it's incredibly important for us to produce these kinds of housing units in our community. So I will be supportive. Councillor Murian?
Thank you, Mayor Little. And I agree that Metro Vancouver is one of the few organizations, or one of the only ones right now in the region, that's actually producing housing. They make a commitment and they move forward. And I can't say that for some other housing providers, unfortunately, in regards to social housing. Metro Vancouver's model is sound, and they produce, great housing for people that have challenges seeking housing in our very unaffordable community. However, I'm not going to be supporting this. I did not support the rezoning of this area because of the site. I don't understand, in this time of true affordability and challenges with budgets, why the district would give one of the most challenging and expensive pieces of property to mitigate to Metro Vancouver when we had 2 other brownfields already mitigated, already serviced, and not requiring to clear cut a forest. I think it is a contradiction to our environmental policies and the contiguous corridors that this area and the Maplewood present. When the Dollarton Business Park was built, the council made decisions on the glass of the business park developments because those buildings sit within a migratory bird path. It feeds the Maplewood Conservation Reserve, one of the only mud flats that is you're able to see it from outer space. This is an integral part of this area, the water that comes off Seymour and feeds Hogan's Pools underneath Mount Seymour Parkway and into the Maplewood mudflats. And we are continuing to displace water tables. We are cutting off water and pouring huge amounts with systems that are coming into our community into storm sewers. And our natural infrastructure is being impacted significantly. The idea that this very environmentally sensitive area is mentioned with a tree planting scheme in this report without the details that I've seen it in the past as a councillor that has been involved in the redevelopment of this area. I'm really disappointed. The connection of our environment is disconnected at the moment. And I think, and I'm bringing a subsequent motion tonight to talk about environmental impacts. Metro Vancouver, and we talk about affordable housing, why wouldn't we have looked at sites that would have reduced the cost of development, reduce the issue of access into this area being as precarious as it is? Councillor Moss talking about parking spots. Well, it's more than 59 because driving a lane in off Old Dollarton, you're going to reduce parking on both sides of that lane. They're going to be omitted. This area is undergoing a huge amount of redevelopment, and the idea of how we're managing water in this area is not even a consideration. None of these things were talked about during the zoning. They're only brought forward during the development permit. Mayor Little, I know that you've been, you felt like the pre-zoning of these lots was the way forward. I think there's flaws in it. I think there's flaws in not understanding some of these great impacts that this area is going to face. I'll take my other 2 minutes. We are seeing a clear cutting of forests across the Seymour. With other landowners taking out significant amounts of stands, and we're wondering why wildlife is being displaced into other neighborhoods. There was great care when the Dollarton Business Park, when the property owned by Canoxy was rezoned. And one of the examples was, and I'm going to say it's McElhaney, but I could be wrong, next to the Darwin building, elevated their office building, their 3-story office building above the grade. All the parking was surface. And they lifted the building above the grade and allowed the cars to park underneath the building. No digging into the water table, because the water table feeds the environment in this area. It would be less expensive for Metro if we looked at that kind of design and started thinking outside the box instead of building like we always have and not understanding the synergies and the connection of the environment. We used to be leaders. We were leaders in this region in protecting of the natural environment in our municipality. We set aside 1,000 acres on a mountain to protect it from development, single-family neighborhoods. And it is not at the front of the line anymore. It does not even sit at par with development. We are isolating these decisions. We are not truly understanding as a councillor, a community, the impacts into the future. And I think we are making some very, very grave mistakes walking down a road where what I fear is the opening up of development for this area, void of understanding the impacts to the natural environment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. In view of Councillor Murray's comments, I felt I needed to explain my vote. I certainly am sensitive to Councillor Murray's comments about the environmental issues of this site, issues with the water table, issues with the forest, issues with it being contiguous to other wild areas. However, we are facing urgent crisis, and this is a social crisis of affordable housing. This proposal has at least 24 units of truly affordable housing and 57 units of rental that will be significantly below market. And it's a value judgment that each of us have to process, that each of us have to engage in at this council. And in my view, in this case, the social benefits outweigh the environmental challenges. And for that reason, I will be voting for this development permit.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Back.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I wasn't actually going to speak to this item either because I remain very supportive of it. I'm proud to see it continuing to move forward. This is going to deliver some very important social housing that our community certainly needs. But just in response to some of the comments around tree loss, that is a real impact. We shouldn't minimize it. But I also do not think it's accurate to reduce this decision to clear cutting a forest to build housing. That's not what this is. This is a designated development site that's close to and in the Maplewood Village Town Center that was rezoned back in 2021. It's going to provide 81 affordable homes for families, for seniors, for people with disabilities, and lower income residents in a location that's close to transit, shops, services. The tree removal and treatment of the forest edge there, is going to be addressed in this development. And I think overall our responsibility here, we have to balance the environmental impact against the very real need for affordable housing. And we shouldn't pretend that this project has no environmental cost, but neither should we pretend that by denying 81 affordable homes has no social costs. We need to put this sort of housing, in the locations where we have the sites that are appropriate for it. And I believe this is an appropriate site. So I remain supportive of it here in this location. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Back. Councillor Hanson, I think that's from before, right? Okay, would anybody else like to address the matter? Seeing no one, prepare to call the question on issuance. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried with Councillor Murray opposed. Thank you, Council. Next item up for discussion is item 8.6, development permits. Oh, that's right. We varied the agenda to move 8.9 up to this item because they're connected. And so the next discussion is item 8.9. This is the proposed partial highway closure and dedication removal of 300 block Riverside Drive highway closure. And so the proposal that this be given a first, second, and third reading. Is there a motion? Councillor Hanson, support the staff recommendation. Is that correct? Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ma. Any other comments on the matter, Councillor Hanson? Councillor Ma? I will just add one comment on this as it kind of relates to construction traffic management. I might get it across to our staff very clearly that we need to put highway use permits in place during the construction traffic management that absolutely limit the impact on Riverside Drive. So just to be clear, that particular spot is under immense pressure during the day as a relief flow. Once the highway backs up, people retreat and try to head through Riverside Drive to get around it or get somewhere else in the community. And so you will see on a regular basis that Riverside is way over capacity and the intersections are reaching a failure point just simply because of the congestion that occurs in those areas. And so it's not every day, but it's certainly we have seen an increase in it. So I just want to make sure that the highway use permits that are issued during the construction process understand the importance of that space. No lane closures in the peak periods. If not accessing and building the project off of their own laneway use space, that would just be my advice to council on that particular, or to staff on that particular matter. Do we have a comment from staff about the construction traffic management for this project?
Yes, Your Worship. So staff from CTM have commented that the site access for construction will be off of Old Dollar. Well, construction access as well as the vehicle access would be off of Old Dollarton. And because of the importance of Riverside Drive being an oversized truck route, it is to maintain relatively impact-free during the construction. There might be the occasional, there could be, the civil work required on Riverside Drive, and then there might be the occasional interruption to Riverside Drive. And this is what they have provided, that the single lane alternating traffic on Riverside Drive, while not ideal, may be able to be tolerated at this location, but won't be approved except for off-site construction, and then only if the applicant Metro Housing can demonstrate that there will be no other reasonable option. So this is the worst case scenario.
I can understand that being used when you have to work on the curb edge. Unfortunately, what I've seen at the development up the hill is that utility construction and other things are being used as an excuse to abuse those user permits. And so just the other day, I took a picture up at the Anthem project of the road being closed, the lane being closed on the Parkway to receive what looked like some more construction materials for the interior of the buildings. And I know that they got the highway use permit because the day before there was curb work being done. And so it was offsite on that side. But then the developer uses it as much as they reasonably can to pack in stuff that's not related to the curb or utility work. And so it tires the community out of these kinds of developments immensely.
Yeah.
And I want to see that absolutely minimized on Riverside because it's a critically important connection.
Yeah, we will definitely communicate that to the CTM staff. Thank you.
Councillor Murray, your comments, please.
Yeah, buckle up, because this is going to be, quite frankly, a disaster. It is my neighborhood. It's where I live. And that Riverside Drive is backed up every day. Not because it is in addition to getting backed up on the second narrows off of Main, but because you don't have to go through the switch lights on the merge on-ramps onto the second narrows bridge. So it's much easier to use Riverside Drive, go left on the Parkway, and then take the horseshoe around to merge onto the bridge. That's why people go that way. And everybody leaving this community from the business park in the evening, it's faster to go the Parkway than to go Dollarton and get into the backup. So you've got a major pinch point on Riverside Drive. Every spot on Old Dollarton is taken up by local businesses. And now you've got an application coming forward by Quadreal, who's in the audience, and they're going to be asking to begin a project with, I think ballpark, it's 500 units, somewhere around there. Yeah, so already we've seen what the neighborhood looks like with the smaller project that they've just finished off Old Dollarton, which was under the original zoning. These zonings, in my opinions, are becoming zero lot line developments with the highest amount of density under the identification in the plan. And already we are void of the appropriate number of parking stalls for the people that work in the community. And now we're adding undergrounds that people aren't parking in because they're 150 a stall to rent. And so they're parking on the street. And so how are we going to get through this with a landlocked area with no parking on Dollarton, only Old Dollarton, and existing businesses in the community that have no place to park? Like, I don't know how you're going to manage this, and I don't know how you're going to, I think worst case scenario is going to be every single day, because already there's no parking anywhere in the community for anyone, and you're adding two significant development projects. One with access out onto Old Dollarton. I mean, this is just, this is going to be probably one of the most challenging we have ever faced, and it's going to create, I believe it's going to create significant chaos in the area. Mayor Little, you talked about the Anthem project on Mount Seymour Parkway. That project was built in phases, and the developer used half of their property to park their vehicles. And they actually did, for a period of time, use some space in Ron Andrews. But that area, they were able to park most of their trades on their own property and, use their cement mixers, et cetera, on their own property. There's nowhere to do that here, unless, of course, we're going to be clearing more lots of trees, which I suspect is going to be the case because you're going to access into this development off of Old Dollarton. So I just, these things have to be, really understood, the impact, and the area has to be understood. And I felt for many years that we don't understand this area. We really don't understand how it operates, how it works, and we're trying to make it into something that it's not. And I think that's a real loss for the community. And I think the impact is going to be so significant with 2 ways in and out of Seymour. This is just going to exacerbate that even more. And I'm sure the community, you're going to hear from them loud and clear because these projects are going to go on for years.
Thank you very much. I see no further speakers. Prepared to call the question on issuance. Actually, sorry, on first, second, and third. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried with Councillor Murray opposed. Okay, back to the original order. So item 8.6, correct? Okay, all right. This is development permit 7.24, 1883 to 1901 Glenaire Drive. And this is that development permit issue 7.24 for a 12-unit townhouse development at 1883, 1901 Glenaire Drive is issued. Moved by Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder on the matter? Second by Councillor Back. Councillor Murray, any comments? Thank you. Councillor Back. Oh, just quick comments. It's a 12-unit proposal. It's very modest and in keeping with the area around it. In fact, lower density than the area around it. So I think it's just great to start to see that neighborhood be finished and get out of its construction phase. And if people haven't been down there to check it out, I highly recommend you go down and visit the very significant playground area down at Belle Isle Park that the district is invested into, and the Lionsgate Community Center that is adjacent to it. It's really become a really great neighborhood. So I'll be supporting development permit issuance. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried unanimously. Okay, the next item up for discussion is item 8.7. This is bylaws 8802 and 8803, Heritage Revitalization Agreement and Heritage Designation for 3526 Everglade Place. This matter is returning from a public hearing. Any additional staff comment? Okay, so looking to council for moved by Councillor Murray, second by Councillor Hanson. Okay, Councillor Murray, any additional comments on the matter?
Oh, yes. This is such a great opportunity for me to support something tonight because it's such an incredible project. And I was pleased to have been contacted by the Bailey family to talk about their want to protect this very significant piece of heritage in our community. We had a great surprise by former Mayor Richard Walton that was able to attend the public hearing, the only speaker at the public hearing, in fact, that evening, other than the applicant. And Mayor Walton, former Mayor Walton of the District of North Vancouver, was able to share with us that he once lived in the house that the family is wanting to restore and protect for themselves and for 2 future property owners, maybe one in the family, to retain on this property. And he offered as well that he had many stories that were attached to this property. And he also had some artwork that was donated by Bill Reed, who had also lived in the property, that he would like to donate to the project. So this is a labor of love. And I do really also want to thank staff, Yan Zhang especially, for pushing this forward because this this lovely piece of architecture that has been in disrepair for many years could not stand another winter, and we needed to advance this quickly forward to hearing and then rezoning. And so I really appreciate staff's commitment to trying to get this done. It's we don't often get the opportunity anymore to save some of these amazing pieces of architecture in our community because people want bigger and they think it's better. And for me, it's not. For me, these projects and these homes tell a story of the past. And the vision that Erickson had to build pieces of architecture that were not just about the inside of a building, but as much about the outside of buildings as well was sort of the vision. And he was an inspiration to many architects going forward. It is a labor of love when you take on something like this. Certainly we are, and Councillor Hanson supported this, but we are looking at amendments to our bylaws to be able to allow, the challenges that come along with protecting these properties, for us to give ourselves some flexibility with property owners, because taking on projects like this are very challenging, and there's going to be lots of unexpected surprises along the way. So we need to have patience. But that's not just the patience of the applicant, it's also the patience of the municipality, understanding that our heritage is important. These stories of our past are critical to telling them into the future. And so for that, I'm so happy to be able to move this. There is, as part of this rezoning, I'll just take my other 2 minutes right now. As part of this rezoning and this heritage revitalization agreement, they are going to pick up the house, move it over onto the lot, and then cut 2 more lots, which will be in keeping. They've got designs for the homes that will be placed on those lots, and it will be in keeping with the character of the neighborhood, the character of the landscaping, and the form and character of the existing architecture. So I think it's a win-win. I think the community was very supportive of this, and it's a fabulous project, and I can't wait to see the future and to see what it looks like. So thank you so much for taking this on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship. Thank you to the applicant. Thank you to staff. Thank you to Councillor Murray for your comments. Very pleased to support this heritage revitalization agreement. I commend the applicant for their efforts to preserve this important North Vancouver heritage asset. I first became aware of this proposal as it came before the Heritage Advisory Committee, and I sit on that body as a council liaison. The Perry residence is very important heritage asset in the district. Both Frank Perry, who was an artist and the original owner of the home, and architect Arthur Erickson were recipients of the Order of Canada. The Perry residence is a rare example, as Councillor Murray commented, of work by Arthur Erickson, and it is an example of a residential property that was designed by him before he became famous, and has a great deal of heritage value because of that. It sits on a 17,800 square foot lot. The proposal is to divide that into 3. I believe that lot can easily accommodate 3 homes. I believe this to be an excellent example of how heritage revitalization agreements can work for the benefit of the community to preserve heritage. And I do, as Councillor Murray mentioned, look forward to further discussions about how we can make heritage conservation more practical in the district for people bringing forward proposals such as this. So thank you very much, and good luck with your development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Mall.
Thank you. Some of this might sound like a repeat, but I want to thank staff as well. I had a prior engagement last Tuesday, and I missed the public hearing. However, I viewed the recording of the public hearing, and I believe now I'm able to vote on this. Thank you. It's funny, when I watch the recording, I want to thank former Mayor Richard Walton for sharing some of his very special memories and the passion for this particular home. I didn't realize he lived in a house. It's pretty cool, and it just shows at times how small North Van can be at times. As previously stated, I'm supportive of this project as it preserves heritage in our community. It also builds some additional housing capacity, and it will add to the character of the immediate area. I want to thank Stephen and Katie, who I met, I guess, a couple months ago by chance at a coffee shop. So, got to visit a home and met your father. So it's a family affair. It's a lot of passion there. So kudos to you. But I am supportive of the staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just say to the applicants, good luck with your project. We look forward to seeing it come to completion. I'll be supportive. I see no further speakers. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Council. Next item up for discussion is item 8.8. This is Bylaws 8787 and Bylaw 8799, second and third reading report for new detached residential zones R1 and R2. And so this item is returning from a public hearing. Just checking in, were there any additional staff comments on the matter?
No further comments.
Thank you very much. Okay, and so Council, I look forward to your motion. Is there a motion on it? Councillor Hanson, seconder, and that's for the staff recommendation, I'm assuming, and Councillor Moss seconding the matter. Councillor Hanson, your comments, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'm pleased to support this proposal to simplify and amend zoning for single-family residential zone. The proposal simplifies zoning by creating one zone, amalgamating the various zones into one zone for planning purposes. And it amends the zoning to take away an exemption for basements. So there's no longer an incentive to build basements as a way of escaping floor space allotment. And in compensation for that, it allows approximately 10 feet of height above our existing height provisions to encourage one to go up instead of going down. It also allows for an additional 500 feet of floor area for coach houses, a bonus square foot allotment for coach houses, and certain other less consequential amendments. Must emphasize that these are not small-scale multi-unit zoning changes. And if indeed, as SHMU, as it's called, becomes imposed on us by the province, we'll need to again reconsider zoning within the single-family zones. Personally, I would have preferred bylaws that prohibited basements, given the environmental harms of basement, all of the concrete used, and the encroachments on the water table. Having said that, I believe these are a step in the right direction, and I'm pleased to support these single-family residential zoning changes.
It was Councillor Ma was the seconder on the matter.
Can I just confirm that it's option one that we're supporting?
It's the recommendation that's on page 349. It's all on the display.
Okay, perfect. I also want to thank the staff for their work. This is a complex project that has many moving parts, and hopefully these changes will help streamline the development of new and affordable homes in our community. I want to add that we have listened and heard the community's feedback. I think staff had to balance many perspectives from the community, the desired environmental outcomes, and consider the goals of this council. I think they did a good job, a very good job. Some may feel different, and it may not be perfect, but it's good, and we need to move forward. And hopefully we will build more coach houses, or we will have more coach houses built, which is the soft density that I believe this community will support. Thank you for making the motion. I will support that. And okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ma. Councillor Beck.
Thank you very much, Mayor Little. I'm also very supportive of the staff recommendation here. Many of the details have been highlighted by my colleagues. But I think the biggest thing here, the biggest benefit is really just the simplification that this will bring, replacing a patchwork of detached residential zones with 2 clear, more consistent zones that should make it easier for homeowners and designers and builders and staff to understand and apply. So I think, we did hear how there could be further changes in the future, but I think we have to recognize that this does represent a big change and one that is, in my opinion, lots of positive changes that will, help us to create more livable homes in the community and more sustainable homes that work for the environment as well as the people that we want to live in these homes. So we can monitor these regulations and I think make targeted adjustments over time. But I think just the simpler, clearer, and more flexible framework will be a very positive move forward. And for those reasons, I'm pleased to support the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Yeah, this is not our finest hour, I don't think. We haven't touched this document in 60 years. And we had neighborhood zones that we actually won awards for because we went out and worked with neighborhoods up into Lonsdale. We got a little past Lonsdale, and then we realized that generally the zoning was coming in around the same, but we spent a lot of time talking to the people that live in this community because you don't come into this community as a starter community. You come here and you stay here forever. And so those neighborhoods mean a lot to people. There's tremendous ownership of these neighborhoods, and those neighborhood zones were a very important part of allowing the community to take part. I blame the provincial government and the legislation that they imposed on us in regards to increasing density to somehow find affordability, which is a farce. And it impacted our ability to carefully walk our community and our council and the people that pay attention through this process to really understand it. I think this process has been very rushed because of that time that was needed to meet those deadlines from the provincial government, and for that we will be impacted. We will be impacted into the future. I'm happy to hear Councillor Back be open to making changes in the future because I think there will be changes needed to this bylaw, to the zoning bylaw, because I don't think we really understand clearly the implications of the changes. And I think that was stated very clearly by many builders in the community that came out and spoke in opposition to this bylaw. There are pluses, and those are some of the things that I'm looking at, because I think there's some people in the community that are impacted very egregiously because of some of these concepts within the zoning bylaw, but also because of the structure of the system that they have to work in. The past was a lot simpler than the present is, and I'm sure it's going to be simpler than the future will be as well. I disagreed, Mayor Little, with your concept that if we were going to remove basements, we had to make up the square footage on the main and second floor. I think that is going to be one of those big flaws going forward. I think the max size houses were 7,000 square feet, pulling them out of the basements. And you and I did agree that making basements non-conforming was not the direction that we should go into either. If somebody wants to build a basement, but there's a cost to it. That will bring up the issue of a stormwater management plan, which is very, very challenging and very expensive. And I hope everyone can see the contradiction here. In this bylaw, we're so concerned about displacement of water, but we're not so concerned with zero lot line multifamily developments displacing the same amount of water in a much larger way and requiring tanking of multifamily basements. You want to talk about affordability, that's the cost, the tanking of the basements. It's an egregious cost, and even single family homeowners are unable to manage it. I'll take my other 2 minutes. We heard at the public hearing the process, the signs that were placed in every corner of our community basically communicated not much. This is a massive change to zoning, massive. The biggest change of zoning we've ever done, that I've ever been a part of, and I'm the longest counselor at this table. We went through it quite briskly. Council touched it maybe 3 times, including the process, which I don't think is even closely adequate enough. At the same time, we were doing our commercial zoning bylaw, and we've asked that come back in the fall because of the impact to business and what we're trying to achieve in our town centers that is really not being realized. We're trying to achieve a place where you can be sustainable, but we're not putting in any tools that require the things that are needed to support a community in a sustainable way as far as local business. So communication was challenging, the process was challenging, the details are challenging, and really we're not going to understand just how challenging that level of communication is until we see the new zoning bylaw applied to not all houses, but a lot of houses. We live on a mountain and then we have a plain. And the impacts of houses on the mountain are going to be very different than the houses on the plain, on the floodplain, very different. And we're gonna take our knocks when those are realized. And I think it is the responsibility of the process to inform us and make sure that we understand what we're voting on. I think right now, I would challenge that we're all clear on this, but I think we've been put in between a rock and a hard place, and we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. So I will look forward to making amendments to this zoning bylaw in the future and working with the professionals within the community that clearly understand it and bring something forward that the community will accept in the future.
Councillor Murray, Councillor Forbes.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I was absent when this meeting was held, but I have looked at the video and I have read all the documentation, including all the comments that were made by the participants. And I was quite impressed by the comments from the participants and their reasons why they were either for it or not for it, or confused about it. And I would agree with a number of the points that Councillor Murray has made, that this seems to have just come very fast and heavy. This time of year, council usually gets their agendas backed up pretty heavy, so we get long agendas like tonight. But I don't feel that this particular subject was covered enough, or that we had enough time to really look into it and decide what our feelings on it were. Some of the points that I made from some of the comments from people were that when you do a mass sort of bylaw like this, it can destroy the neighborhood. It doesn't take into account if there are heritage homes in the neighborhood. It doesn't take into account what the neighbors on either side, what their structures might be, and how well it blends in with the neighborhood. And we've been very, very proactive in developing separate areas of our municipality to have their own plan built in sort of underneath the OCP, that all the town centers had their own plans. And I'm worried that this is just going to destroy neighborhoods in the short run, maybe long run, it's going to remove the character. And I would rather have seen us still keep the neighborhood by neighborhood mentality. Perhaps put this R1 and R2 into one neighborhood or two neighborhoods and see how that goes. But to just blanket it, I'm not in favor of it. Basements act as natural. I mean, I don't want to see, I want basements out of the ground too. I don't want them to where the windows are up at the 8-foot mark and you hardly get any light in there. I don't think people should live like that. But I have a basement that acts as my cooling place to go in the summer. I don't have air conditioning. So I come down from the upper floor of my house and I do what I need to do in the basement because it's far cooler and my dog loves it too. So basements have pluses to them. I'm afraid that there's going to be a lot of variances that go forward with this, which I hope there is because I'm not in agreement with this. The height was also a concern by a number of participants. They mentioned the height. Our height is going to have a maximum of 38 feet. And even Burnaby, who we all consider they're getting those monster developments, schmooze built on lots in Burnaby, even Burnaby has restricted their height to a maximum of 30, and we're going 38. So it could be done with a little less impact, I think. I see some winners in this, possibly new home builders, because you can build a new home, but I see losers that maybe the older character or the older homes or the already built homes may suffer from that. The setbacks are changing. There's a number of things that are changing. And so I just think this came too fast, too quick, and I'm not in favor of it. I'll be voting against it.
Thank you very much. I may be one of the odd circumstances here where my house would actually have to get smaller under these new regulations. I would probably be reduced by about 300 square feet if you applied this calculation to my house, because our property has a 4-story house on it, which is no longer permitted under the regulation. And so we'd have to cut down and shrink the size of the house. And since the basement, which is exempted in our situation, is 1,600 square feet, because it's got a garden suite and stuff for my in-laws, that would now have to be counted against my square footage. My house would actually have to become smaller under the regulation. So I know there's a lot of people who are saying bigger, 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 bigger. The reality is you'd have to have a really large lot to get a significantly bigger total massing of a house. And so those lots are rather rare, and they tend to be out of the town center areas and up on the fringe. And still, they couldn't put in place what I have on my property, which I think, because of the hill we're on, is not what you would call an imposing house, because it's an old heritage house. It's the oldest house on the district of North Vancouver, the old farmhouse from the Peterson Ranch, that's been lifted and had basement and main floor under it, and I'm up in the attic. Literally, I only have about, as a 6'4" person, I only have about 80 square feet that I can walk through in my bedroom without hitting my head, because it's an attic. Well, attic living is not permitted in these layouts, and so I will actually lose space. I'm not making the decision based on my own impact to myself. I think that there's no question that this consolidates an otherwise very complex and confusing zoning process that we had that created conflict when people would come to the counter. I remember years ago, a staff member being headhunted to another municipality, and the headhunter said, "Yeah, we love the North Van guys because they know their rules, because they have to have different zones in mind for every single neighborhood." And it was considered to be that you had to be a pretty sharp planner to be able to operate in such a complex environment that we had created in North Van. So I'm happy to see the bylaw not just updated, completely rebuilt. It had had plenty of renovations and updates over since the 1960s. It had unfortunately just left it as a great big spaghetti mess. we still have a big challenge to come, which is consolidating the commercial zoning question. And we cut that out because we knew it was going to delay this process. But that is going to be complex because the commercial zones, it's very hard to boil them down to one or two or three potential zones when you have such dramatic differences between them. But for single family homes, it's conceivable. I will just, with my last little bit, speak to the issue of affordability. There is no affordability in new single family houses. By the time you do a $500 square foot, and that's generous. We're seeing $600 a square foot coming out right now. $500 a square foot, 1,500 square foot. Sorry, if you have a 3,000 square foot house, you're 1.5 million in construction on top of the empty lot. You are already at the provincial government's premium housing price by the time you produce one 3,000 square foot house, let alone mortgage helpers and coach house and secondary suites and whatever else. Don't look to this for affordability. You won't find it. It's incredibly expensive to build in the current market. It's incredibly expensive to build in our community. We have a shortage of trades that's contributing to it, but it's much broader than that. It's the provincial government likes to blame municipalities for delays in construction and costs related to it. Well, I got to tell you, it's us enforcing their electrical code, their mechanical code, their fire code, their environmental code, which would go slightly above. And those delays add to costs and creating housing. But the bulk of it is not from the municipality, even though we get blamed for it because we're the ones enforcing their regulations. So I would not look to this kind of housing for affordability. If you want affordability, it's going to be in town centers, properly supported by transit and properly built with purpose-built rental plans and condominium strata plans that can produce units at about half the dollar per square foot rate than you can see when you're building single family homes. So I think this is a progress in our single family zone and the consolidation of the facility. I think that the big challenge is still yet to come when it comes to updating the commercial zoning pieces that we're going to have to address with the new council. But I'll be supportive. Thank you. Councillor Back?
You pretty much mentioned it in your comments there, but there's been some comments around the table that this process is somehow being rushed. But we did actually provide direction for council to bring for staff rather to bring forward the changes to the single family zone while leaving the commercial zones, because we do want to take more time to understand how we can use that tool in the commercial zones to create more vibrancy potentially and really understand any potential unintended consequences. But the reason we're looking at this now is because there's been large amount of positive feedback from the community in simplifying the rules around the single family zones. So I just wanted to acknowledge it. It's not rushed because anyone's forcing it upon us. We asked for it to come forward first, and just want to thank staff for all the work that they put into this over a very long period of time. It's been an immense amount of work. So I just wanted to acknowledge that as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Back. I see no further speakers on the matter. Prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried with Councillor Forbes opposed. Okay, next item up for consideration. We already passed 8.9 earlier in the evening. And so the next item up for consideration is 8.10. This is Bylaw 8807, revised zoning text amendment for 2131 to 2171 Old Dollarton Road, 229 to 291 Riverside Drive, and 2102 to 2128 Front Street, Maplewood Gardens. And this item is up for first, second, or third reading. And I have a motion from Councillor Ma. The motion is the staff recommendation, Councillor, is that correct? It is, okay. Is there a seconder for the matter? Second by Councillor Back. I guess we do have the applicant here as public input tied to it. All right, welcome.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. My name is Brennan Finley, and I'm here on behalf of Quad Rail Property Group, who are the owners of Maplewood Gardens. I want to start by thanking council and staff on the feedback for this application and acknowledging directly what we heard. Parking in Maplewood neighborhood is a real concern, and affordable rental housing is a priority. We have taken that seriously in revising this application. Tonight's amendment seeks to update a previously approved zoning bylaw, converting 101 homes from market condominium to market rental and 20 homes from market rental to below market rental for a total of 80 below market rental units. I feel this is a positive change to the application, which will directly benefit those looking to access below market housing in the Maplewood neighborhood. I believe it's also important for council to understand what is driving the shift in tenure. There are two main things. The first, which is probably not very surprising, is drastic changes in the market. When this project was first originally approved, we anticipated a strong pre-sale market to support our construction financing. That pre-sale environment has drastically changed, and rental is now a much more viable path towards breaking ground. The second is access to financing. This change in condominium to rental will allow us to access federal financing through the apartment construction loan program, which supports both rental and affordable housing projects, which align both with council's own priorities and their OCP. On parking specifically, this change maintains a parking ratio council previously approved in the original rezoning. 0.75 parking stalls per rental unit and 1.1 stalls per condominium unit. Based on our experience managing rental projects within this neighborhood, we strongly believe this ratio meets the actual rental demand. However, in direct response to council's feedback, we've made two changes to this application. First is we've partnered with Moto to provide 2 car share stalls for renters who choose not to take a parking stall. We see this as a practical, affordable option for car light households. We've also added 14 parking stalls to increase the overall ratio to further address council's concerns. Finally, I'd like to note that parking supply on this property is a balancing act. Overbuilding parking drives up construction costs to a point where the projects stop being financially viable. This site has challenging site conditions, as has been noted tonight on other projects, and every stall that is built on our P2 level has significant cost impacts. We believe this revised application strikes a balance, addressing the concerns we heard from council while keeping the project deliverable. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, any additional comments from staff? Ms. Jenks, I think you had
Yeah, we had prepared a very short presentation, just a project overview of the revised proposal. If she may.
I was on such great pace. I saw a motion, I went and grabbed it. There you go. Okay, please, welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council and the public. This evening, we're revisiting the previously approved Maplewood Gardens development for consideration of first, second, and third readings of a text amendment bylaw. This bylaw is to facilitate the inclusion of more market and below market rental housing. To enable this, amendments to the rezoning bylaw include parking, building height, and allocation of amenity space are also proposed. These changes do not require a public hearing. As you'll recall, the project was originally approved in March of 2025 for development of 552 residential units and roughly 8,600 square feet of commercial space. The residential portion of the project includes rental housing, strata, and live work units as shown above. The proposed text amendment includes the conversion of 121 strata units to 101 market rental and 20 below market rental as outlined by the applicant. On June 22nd, a text amendment bylaw was brought to council for consideration of first, second, and third readings to accommodate changes to the Maplewood Gardens project. At that time, the amendments included the same conversion of 121 units, as well as a reduction in the parking rate for strata units. Subsequent parking reductions would also result from the tenure change and were bylaw compliant. While additional rental and below market units were generally supported, concerns from council were heard regarding the reduction in parking that was being proposed, and the text amendment did not proceed. As noted, the applicant has amended the proposal as shown in the last box on the screen above to address concerns raised by council. Primarily, this amendment includes an increase in the strata parking being provided, as well as the provision of 2 car share vehicles and parking for such. No additional changes to the text amendment bylaw are proposed. The slide above outlines in greater detail the changes to strata parking rates through the course of the application. As a result of the tenure change, 255 strata units are proposed in the development. As shown in the first row, 1.1 stalls per unit are required by the CD zone, which equates to 281 stalls. In the bylaw considered by council on June 22nd, the applicant proposed 1 stall per unit for a total of 255, which is 26 less than required by the CD zone. And to address concerns raised by council, the current application increases this rate to 1.055 per unit for a total of 269 strata residential stalls. This is only 12 less than required by bylaw. The applicant, as he noted, also proposes to supply 2 car share vehicles in coordination with Moto. These will be available for use in the Maplewood area and support a reduced demand for private vehicles. Overall, the proposed parking and the TDM measures comply with the requirements of the AVPR policy and the recommendations included in the transportation impact assessment, which was conducted for the site and surrounding area. In closing, the OCP provides direction to consider reduced parking requirements as incentives to encourage additional rental and below market rental housing in the district. The bylaw for your consideration this evening is proposing additional rental and below market housing and is providing parking and TDM measures in alignment with the district's AVPR policy and the transportation impact assessment. If able to proceed as proposed, the development will form a key site at the heart of Maplewood Village Center and provide significant on and off-site contributions, such as on-street parking, transit and pedestrian improvements, and lane improvements to facilitate efficient vehicle movement. Staff recommend that first, second, and third readings of Bylaw 8807 be issued by council, and we're available for questions should there be any.
Could you just repeat the on-street parking part that you said? Sorry, I missed that.
I said the development will provide significant on and off-site contributions, such as on-street parking, transit and pedestrian improvements, and lane improvements to facilitate efficient vehicle movement.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Ma, your motion?
Yes. Thank you. First, I want to thank the staff, Taylor, for her work on this. As I previously stated, when this project came before council, I believe in March 2025, I supported it. Then the applicant returned on June 22nd of this year and sought to adjust the tenure of 121 units because of challenging financial and market condition. At that point, I had to reevaluate the situation. I think as a former mayor used to say, when the facts change, I change. Now, did I get that quote right, Mayor Little?
When the facts change, so do I.
Oh, so do I. Okay, let the record show that. I still believe this is a good project for the community. However, the change from strata to rental of the 121 units resulted in a corresponding reduction in parking being provided. Now, the revised application that was received by council was in line with our current bylaws at that time. I want to acknowledge that the applicant was not asking for anything special. However, I saw an opportunity to see if we can get some higher parking because the on-street parking in Maplewood is already at a premium. And that's something that has been raised many times at this council table. With the assistance of Dan Milburn, our GM of planning, and the willingness and cooperation of Quadrio, we found a way forward, and the developer has now returned with a revised application. I admit it's not going to please everyone, but it's a good and acceptable compromise. We negotiated additional 14 parking spaces, additional transportation demand management TDM measures, which, as has been mentioned, includes 2 Moto car shares vehicles, and that wasn't in place before. Overall, I think this is, in my opinion, a better project and better for the community. I support the staff's recommendation to give this project first, second, and third reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ma. Who was the seconder? Okay, no additional comments. I'll just add my own comments. I mean, I was supportive last time, but I think the changes that have been insisted upon by Councillor Ma have made it a better project, and so it will receive my support today. Councillor Murray.
So can you just walk us through the heights that are changing?
Through your worship, there's a minor change to the height allocated for mechanical equipment on the roof.
Oh,
There's no change to the overall building height.
okay.
Facade.
So we're still down 12 parking spots from what was originally agreed to. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so the total number of units is 552 and the total number of parking stalls is?
For residential only or total?
Residential only, and then the commercial.
Wait, just one moment. 269 are for strata, 55 for commercial and visitor, and I'm just getting the rental number. My apologies. Can you help me out here? Can you just search for me?
Just the, through the mayor, is that just the visitor and commercial? That will remain the same, which is the 55.
Yeah, okay. So how many residential units total? How many residential parking stalls?
Well, that's on the top of page 5 of the report, which says that there's.
I know, but why does it take so long to just find those numbers? This is
page 507 of the total package, but yep.
Sorry, through your worship, 492 total stalls will be provided.
492 and 552 units. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I don't understand how this math works. I really don't. There is and then the idea that the developer will provide on-street parking, that we can then put parking meters in to charge people for parking under TDM engineering approaches. We are densifying these areas that are landlocked to such a significant level. This is one site. There's 3 more sites in the area that already has existing older rental on it. What are those numbers going to look like? I can only imagine. The amount of density that we're putting into this community is so significant at the entrance to the bridgehead, thinking that that's the win, and everybody will take the bus when the bus and the programming of the bus is very challenging, including capital to expand the system. But the idea that renters don't bring cars is something I really think we need to reflect on a bit, because they do. They all do. Most people have cars. And the idea that somehow we're going to be able to absorb even 12 cars or not even have one parking spot per unit is so challenging for me in this area. We apply these rules in a blanket, like every area is the same, and they're so not the same. They're so different, these neighborhoods, these communities, the infrastructure that they have or don't have. It is astounding to me that it's always one size fits all. And it's just not. Where once we used to look at these areas into how they evolved, or the type of community they were. Now we just take policies and apply them, and it's an equation and it'll work, and it doesn't. It just doesn't work. We've seen that over and over and over again. It doesn't work. We've taken ideas from the past thinking that this would somehow achieve more people getting on the bus and the mode share would change. It's not changing. So I don't understand these densities and what we're trying to do to these neighborhoods and communities. Are we wanting them to be so challenged beyond recognition of who they are and what they're about? Northwoods Village, there is no parking for employees. Zero. Stong's employees are told to park behind the gas station, behind on the edge of the railway tracks. That's where they identify their parking, because there's the parking lots are so full with people coming in. You know, which is a shame, because those employees are taking up, I'll take my other 2 minutes. Those employees are taking up space on the road because there's no parking for employees. And here we're adding more commercial, we're expanding industry, and we have no area to place any more on-street parking. And yet it's one of the things that the developer is going to provide, but I just don't know where. I mean, in this application, we continue to reduce the number of stalls. In the previous application, we don't even have one-to-one, and then we're taking away parking stalls on the road. And we're talking about how we want to protect, you know, the issue of parking, but our actions aren't actually doing that. You know, quite frankly, this project is just too dense for this property. It's just way too dense. And you know, we've taken the concept of a tower, a 12-story tower that was once the idea, and squishing it down, but never removing any of the density. We never want to remove density. Zero lot line developments. The Parkway, zero lot line development, where the livability just disappears. And if you look at projects that were built 10 years ago and projects that are built right now, boy, there's a difference. There's such a difference to the livability of these projects, because we seem to think that the more density that we add, somehow it's going to bring down the price, and it just doesn't. And then the community is unlivable. There's no parking, there's chaos, there's challenge. And I don't know why we do it. I don't know what's in it for us. I don't. I'd take out a layer of parking for you so you didn't have to tank it, you know, if we could look at it differently. But why do we always have to, you know, squish in as many units as we can in hopes that we're going to achieve something that we know is never going to happen?
Okay. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Murray. Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will be voting against this proposal, and just to make sure my vote is understood. First of all, thank you to all my council colleagues for their comments. I know there's discussion about parking. That's not my primary concern, and appreciate it's come back with the parking change. It doesn't affect how I analyze this. From my point of view, 552 units that are, unless there was a greater affordability component, or unless they were all rental, from my point of view, that's just too many units, too much density in this site at this time, given infrastructure constraints. And beyond that, I'm not going to repeat so much that I've said before about this proposal, but my vote has nothing particular to do with parking. It's really focused on what I think is too big a project for this location at this time, given its lack of significant affordability or 100% rental. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pope.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support this. I think it makes a lot of sense to convert these strata units to rentals. We have a great need for rentals on the North Shore. And particularly appealing to me is the increase in below market rentals. So now there will be 80 below market rentals. And that is 14.5% of the total number, which I think is pretty good these days. And then when you throw in the 2 moto car share vehicles, and you've met some of the other criteria that other councillors were needing to have, such as increased parking stalls, I think it's a win for the community. So thank you very much for the reapplication, and I'll be voting in favor.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Pope. I see no further speakers on the matter. Prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried with Councillors Forbes, Murray, and I believe Councillor Hanson opposed. Okay. Council, yeah, let's go on to what we're trying to get 8:11 done before we take a break here. Yeah. Okay, so 8:11 is the 2026 to 2030 financial plan amendment. These are relatively minor amendments, but we have staff present. Mr. Danlick going to do an introduction for us.
Thank you, Mayor Little. This is the first amendment to the district's 5-year financial plan. The amendment updates the plan for known changes since adoption on April 13th and ensures required spending authority is in place. The amendment strengthens the district's financial management practices as staff reviewed more than 300 capital projects to better align approved budgets, project schedules, delivery capacity, and cash flow requirements. The amendment also highlights future changes to be brought forward to Council this fall through a second financial plan amendment. Regular amendments keep the financial plan current and align with Council's direction. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'll be supportive of the staff recommendation. Is there a seconder on the matter? Second by Councillor Murray. Just my comments. This is reflects Council's priorities and a couple of new pieces that were identified by the Council the last time we had our discussion on financial plan. Obviously, nobody likes to see increased costs going forward. And so we are doing our best to manage our own house and make sure that we're being responsible with the public's tax dollars in this very challenging environment. And but I'll be supportive of this plan. Is there a seconder by Councillor Murray? You have a comment? Okay. Would anybody else like to comment on the matter? Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. We have 2 more items. That's true. Yeah, we can keep going if I think Councillor Pope's already stepped out. So, okay. All right. The next item is Aging and Older Person Strategy Phase 2 update. Only thing is, I may have signaled to Councillor Pope that we were going to take a break, and so this item. So slowly do your presentation. How about that? All right.
Carolyn Tay has some introductory comments, and then Tanya Oswald has a brief presentation for Council.
Great. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of Council, and members of the public. The report before you this evening provides an update on the Aging and Older Person Strategy, which Council directed staff to develop earlier this year. The district has a strong foundation of policies, plans, and programs that support older adults, including initiatives related to housing, transportation, accessibility, social inclusion, poverty reduction, and dementia-friendly communities. The Aging and Older Person Strategy will build on this foundation by providing a coordinated district-wide framework that aligns age-friendly priorities, identifies gaps and emerging needs, and guides future action. Rather than replacing these policies and programs, the strategy will connect and strengthen them, helping ensure the district is well positioned to support a growing and increasingly diverse older population through a more integrated and age-friendly approach. We are now nearing completion of phase 2 of the strategy development process, having recently concluded community engagement. The feedback received has provided valuable insights into the experiences, priorities, and needs of older adults, and will help shape both near-term opportunities and longer-term strategic actions. This evening, Tanya Oswald, Community Planner, will present a summary of phase 2 engagement findings, key themes emerging from the feedback, and next steps towards developing the final strategy. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Oswald to take council through the findings and next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Tay, for the introduction, and good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. As mentioned, I'll be speaking to the report being presented for information tonight, which provides an interim update on phase 2 of developing the aging and older person strategy. The strategy is being developed through a 3-phase process shown here. Following Council's initiation of this project last November, phase 1 focused on establishing the foundation for the strategy. Council endorsed the project scope of work and strategic directions to guide the strategy's development, and also directed staff to apply for the BC Healthy Communities Age-Friendly Grant Program to support engagement and implementation planning. Tonight's report provides an update on phase 2, shown in the middle box, where I'll be sharing on key findings from targeted engagement activities completed over the spring. During this phase, staff were also successful in securing the full $25,000 in requested grant funding to support the remaining work. Towards the end of the presentation, I'll speak more on this and next steps as we move towards phase 3, which will deliver a refined strategy to Council for feedback in early 2027 prior to the final adoption and then submission of grant reporting requirements. Targeted phase 2 engagement activities were designed to gather feedback on key issues and help inform the development of goals and actions for the strategy to address. Staff engaged just over 150 residents aged 50 and older through in-person workshops, virtual methods, community pop-ups, and discussions, including local organizations and government partners. In total, 17 activities were completed. As part of this work, we just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the significant contributions of organizations who supported this phase, with some providing a range of in-kind contributions such as venues, staffing, translation services, refreshments, and other supports. Our engagement identified several interconnected themes affecting quality of life for older adults. A few are shown here and detailed further in attachment 1. Housing affordability and financial vulnerability were among the most significant concerns, alongside challenges accessing services due to mobility barriers and digital exclusion. Participants also highlighted the importance of safe public spaces, the impacts of limited program capacity and social isolation, and growing concerns around climate-related vulnerabilities. Based on what we've heard, we've begun translating those findings into a series of emerging goal and action areas aligned with the phase 1 strategic directions shown here, with details starting on page 575 of tonight's agenda package. Starting on the left with community life and social well-being, an emerging goal area is focused on reducing social isolation by expanding affordable recreation and wellness opportunities, strengthening volunteer and peer supports, and improving outreach to seniors who may be harder to reach. Under connected care and supports, we're seeing goals and actions aimed at making services easier to navigate through clearer information and direction for in-person support, in addition to actions supporting stronger coordination across health, social, and community services. Under mobility, safety, and access, the emphasis is on improving transportation options, making public spaces safer and more accessible, and highlighting actions for strengthening emergency preparedness for climate-related events. And lastly, under housing stability and aging in the right place, emerging goals and actions are focused on expanding affordable and accessible housing options while supporting older adults to remain safely and independently in their homes. The project is now transitioning from engagement into strategy development. With the support of the $25,000 grant, staff will complete phase 2 and prepare for phase 3 with support from a consulting gerontologist. Phase 3, starting in the fall, will focus on establishing priorities, timelines, roles, and performance measures with implementation partners. Staff will present council with a draft strategy for feedback in early 2027 prior to final consideration and adoption, followed by grant reporting requirements in the spring. The result of this work will be a strategy and 10-year implementation framework that reflects current needs and priorities while establishing a collaborative roadmap for action that builds on existing initiatives the district is already undertaking, such as housing development supporting seniors, including the recently completed projects of Lynn Woods and Hollybrook, also keeping older adults safer during extreme heat through initiatives like the Cooler Condos Climate Initiative. And just one final example, Council's direction to support healthy aging by continuing to provide needed grant funding to community organizations that provide essential programs and services for older adults. The strategy will build on these successes, identify new opportunities over the short and long term, and guide coordinated action over the next decade. As our population continues to age, this strategy will provide a framework to help the district and its partners to better support the inclusion, accessibility, and well-being for older adults while benefiting residents of all ages. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Myself and fellow staff are available to answer any questions on the report being received for information this evening.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Tanya. I appreciate that staff has
moving your seat.
Yes, sorry.
There's a seconder for receipt. Thank you, Councillor Hens. Councillor Ma, go ahead.
Okay, start again. Thank you, Tanya. I appreciate that staff has broken this comprehensive project into 3 phases, and I'm happy to receive this phase 2 update. And my focus is probably going to be on the preliminary findings on page 4. Good summary. You know, when I first envisioned this strategy, there could be a lot of little things that can make a big difference. I just want to clarify, when you talk about pedestrian infrastructure for transit, are we talking about more benches and enclosed bus stops? Is that what you mean by pedestrian infrastructure?
Through the mayor, those are good examples of what is meant by that kind of infrastructure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's perfect. I remember Councillor Back mentioned, I'm not going to quote him, but what was good for seniors should be good for families with young children. So I think that's great, especially if we're trying to do that mode shift. We got to have more comfort at bus stops. So I think that's great. I also appreciate all the different groups that staff have engaged with, and I made special note. I picked up and noticed the cycling without age, and that they were mentioned in a report. And this is in my opinion, a very good group that engages with seniors. And I'll give them a little shout out. They came out with a try-shot to a recent Canada Day event in Permanent Heights, so it was really well received there. There is one area that I just want a little more clarification on. Within this page 5 of the slides, it talks about housing instability and affordability. And maybe I just didn't read it in the report, but is there going to be more of a focus in the next phase on senior housing? And that to me is a very broad thing. It could be as simple as, or sorry, not as simple, but it could include what Hollyburn Society just launched their pilot for hidden housing. I'm sure you're aware of it. It's a home sharing program supporting adults age 55 plus on the North Shore. And I think they lovingly mentioned it's like the Golden Girls model. Is this something that will be picked up in the next phase?
Through the mayor, Hollyburn is a participating organization within the North Shore Seniors Coalition and has provided a lot of support in phase 2 to date. Detailing out specific initiatives that we may want to highlight in the strategy may be a part of this, but absolutely understanding the existing landscape of what's available and what supports already exists to help seniors connect to find appropriate housing solutions is part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And it may make its way to the implementation planning stage.
I think it's great to identify that housing is part of it. The other part is that social engagement, trying to address social isolation. So certain programs, in my mind, could address a whole bunch of different goals. So housing is great in itself, but there's a bigger objective here is this social isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And in talking about housing, I know when I worked at BC Housing, there were some projects for seniors, and they would incorporate with health groups such that there was senior housing within the same building, there was also dementia units. So as you probably know, one of the key things with people that are suffering from dementia is just losing that familiar environment and faces. So the concept behind there was allowing people, as their health needs change, allow them to kind of stay within the same building, because it was the services that were available in that housing that evolved as the person's health needs evolved. Is this something that will be looked at?
Through the mayor, looking at seniors housing can be achieved through policy documents such as the Housing Needs Report is a really good space to explore different types of housing for seniors, whether it's addressing and identifying what is seniors housing in the district and what does that need look like, and also looking at different models such as more assisted or longer term care housing developments. So it may not make it directly into this strategy, but we may be able to point as a direction for considering these different types of housing as we undertake more planning and policy to meet our housing needs.
Yeah. I think that's the key. If I can take my 2 minutes, I think that's the key, is that a strategy can integrate with other objectives from this council. A senior strategy can overlap with housing, can overlap with food safety. Like there's so many overlaps that I'm going to borrow a term from one of my counselors, but just going beyond the silos. So I would ask staff to kind of take that approach, just to see how one potential initiative can meet multiple objectives. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ma. Just my own comments on the matter. And it's not really specifically related to the strategy itself, but it's about seniors living in our community. Health. It's all about making sure that they have rapid access to health services, because you can provide all of the opportunity in the community for activity engagement and try to combat social isolation. But the minute they're shut in, it has a deep impact on their life going forward. It can be a minor injury. It can be, I have a family member who is going through their first big challenge as a senior with an impinged nerve in their lower back. And it deeply impacts their life, cuts them off socially, cuts them off from the activities that they were engaging in. And without timely medical support, a lot of this falls apart. And I just was going to say that for this person, even though they have the means to seek an alternative, they've been received good service throughout with our system throughout all of their years. They would never want do anything other than take their turn and generally support the system. But you're now starting to see the real challenges of our system supporting older seniors, where it's indifferent to months between doctor's appointments or months between an MRI, CT scan, or the ability to see a specialist. And so, I'm fully supportive of us trying to have other ways to support seniors going forward in our community by contemplating ways we can improve our public spaces and accessibility of our broader community. But until we address that issue of getting people back mobile and active and sort out rapid access to health services, I'm worried about the state that it's going to be in as we get to the next crush. And the next crush is by 2030, demographically, we will have more seniors passing away than new seniors being created. It's the first time in Canada's history that we'll actually have a declining number of seniors because we've moved through the seniors. But as you approach 2030, which is coming up real quick, that is the most intense hit and impact on our healthcare services, with the ever increasing challenge of fewer people in the age demographics below are being able to support and pay for all of the services that that group has. Fortunately, it's temporary for a time, but then as we go through the demographic shifts that we're going to see, it's going to be an ongoing problem within our system. So just as someone who's seeing the challenges firsthand with an aging senior in their family, we're not ready for it, and our health system is not responsive enough at this moment to be able to get people back up and get active and back out in the community. It's so great to see, the Silver Harbor Senior Center just about complete that we partner in on with the City of North Vancouver. It'd be great to get that amenity back up and running. But our services for seniors will always be limited by their shut-in status based on their health and availability in the community. So I'm supportive of this general direction. I've just become acutely aware of some of the challenges that an 80-year-old in our community can come to expect as far as the slow returns for because workers are prioritized in the healthcare system rather than seniors to some degree. So, Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Oswald, for your work. I have a lot of exposure to seniors issues on the North Shore. I'm a senior. My spouse is a senior. Both my parents died in their 90s on the North Shore. My dad at 98. 3 out of 4 of my grandparents died in their 90s on the North Shore. My grandmother at 99. Decades and decades lived as seniors, a third of their lives in many cases. So I was struck when I read the report at how the issues for seniors really mirror the issues for the rest of us. Affordable housing, transportation, especially public transportation and active transportation, safety. My grandmother lived to 99, lost the quality of the last few years of her life because she suffered from a purse snatching. Somebody stole her purse. And it triggered a mental health issue that she never really overcame. Services, recreations, access to places to socialize and meet people, and of course, healthcare, which becomes such a significant issue as we age, particularly as we reach those bigger numbers. Older people seniors often become perhaps more vulnerable. So transportation, public transportation, issues like lighting, issues like the sidewalks can make the difference between whether you're able actually to have some kind of social outlet or not, because you may or may not be able to participate. And of course, housing issues. Older people often live on fixed incomes. Seen it in my own family. If you're going to live 30 or perhaps close to 40 years, as a senior, your income diminishes, you don't keep up, and pretty soon it's difficult to meet the expenses of housing. So older people perhaps feel all these issues more acutely, more vulnerable to them, but they're exactly the same issues. And I really thought that it was a valuable exercise that you engaged in to identify these issues. And it struck me that if we build a society that works for seniors, you know what, we've built a good community. We've identified the pinch points around these issues and addressed their needs. So thank you for your work. I look forward to seeing the work progress, and I do look forward to us keeping an eye on seniors who are going to become an increasing demographic. And just it's a significant chapter of many of our lives. I say close to a third of our life, in many cases, is going to be spent as a senior right here in our community. And it does behoove this council to focus on those issues. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Beck.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to reiterate my support for this work. I think it's such important work, and I think the actions that will come out of this, as has been said, will support not just seniors but so many people in our community. Just recently, I spoke to a group of seniors at a luncheon at St. Agnes Church, and I was telling them just at a high level that this strategy was being worked on, with credit to Councillor Ma for bringing the motion forward to help initiate it. And a whole bunch of ideas came out, and I'm going to be compiling them and forwarding them to staff. But, things like one woman told me that she just recently become visually impaired and didn't realize all the different things that she would have to, how she would have to adapt her life in the different ways that she would. And, one was just getting used to the chirping noise when she presses the button at a crosswalk, and how that noise is different in different municipalities in some cases. And it's not every crosswalk has that chirping sound. And she goes, I've really become dependent on it. I'm like, well, that makes total sense. So, and then this, the issue of folks the increasing number of folks who are living with Alzheimer's and dementia, in many cases earlier onset. This past weekend, I was in one of our parks and I saw somebody who was quite upset. And it's their partner has Alzheimer's and had wandered away from them, and they had become separated for a period of time. There were some other people around, and we were able to help find her and reunite her. But I just thought something like that, like maybe it's wayfinding in some cases in some of these public spaces to help people understand, what people living with Alzheimer's and dementia, how to handle them. And, and when you encounter somebody who looks like they're lost or disoriented, what you should do. So there's just so many different actions, so many layers and areas in our community where we could be looking at how we're addressing this. And I think this strategy is the perfect place to do it. So really at this point, just wanted to commend staff on the work so far and the way we're going about getting feedback through the engagement on this, and excited to see how it comes together and the actions that will come from it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Murray.
Councillor Back brought up in regards to the pressing of the buttons to cross the road and how it's different in different municipalities. And I hope this strategy will look at the practicalities of things. 2 councils ago, we talked about, trying to partner with housing organizations to look at the ability for seniors that were isolated coming together. And it's a program that has sort of slowly evolved, and there's some evidence that for some people it will work, but there's a lot of challenges to it, and it's not going to address most of the issues that people that are isolated have, just because of the complexities of putting people together and at different stages of health, et cetera, as the mayor's raised. But I think there's some practical issues, and the pressing of the button to cross the street has always been one that we've had to address with engineering, for instance. It's never been long enough. Frail seniors, ones that are living up on the Parkway, for instance, needing to get across the street has been challenging. The surface of the sidewalks, pavers, for instance, can be very challenging for seniors to walk on. My dad lived at Tapestry out in Westbrook Village, and the surface of the sidewalks were horrific for him as a 92-year-old to walk, and he was still physical at that point. But I think about, just when we make decisions on the North Shore collectively, like pay parking, for instance, we all have different apps to allow pay parking in our parks. Why don't we come together and work on one app to make it simpler for people that are frustrated by having to use an app if they don't have a cell phone, or, trying to get through these sort of simple things, these things that we all share, that the borders don't matter. And I think if we could look at those sort of practical approaches to some of this, I think it would go a long way, as opposed to trying to find that perfect place where we're, addressing all of the issues that surround seniors, and certainly the issue around healthcare. I have a friend, he's a senior. He's 63. He surfs, even though he's got, he needs to have a hip replaced. He's a surfer. So the idea of a senior is changing as the decades move. 70 is the new 50, and 90 is the new 70, and that is reality. People are healthier. They're looking after themselves better. Certainly in our community, the advantages are immense. And so I don't think we can think of the senior, my grandma and I looked pretty different at 61. And so I think we have to make sure that we understand that as well. But I think there are some practical things that we can implement quite quickly. And I hope we focus on those things, because it's those little things that make a difference, like having the tone of a crosswalk signal sound the same so people aren't confused.
Thank you. Councillor Pope, please.
Thanks. I just had to put up my hand because I'm just wondering where the definition of 50 plus became older and aging person. Like, why are we throwing that in? It makes no sense to me.
Through the mayor, the strategy itself is designed to support older adults. And as part of the engagement, we did not turn away folks that identified as 50 or older. So they were included to share their input, also understanding that they are aging into the senior demographic. So by the time that some of the longer term priorities are also in the process of implementation, they will be at that age.
Yeah, I get that. But I mean, I do think that most of we've certainly heard from Vancouver Coastal Health Medical Health Officer, Alexandra Choi, that where the problems really start coming is generally in the 80 plus range. So I wish we could focus more on that. The people that are really going to need the care in the future, and exactly what they are. It's not to discount that others that are younger or people, age in different at different times. But I would like to see more focus on providing assistance, or providing this foundation and the guidelines for the future towards people who fall into the categories of the ones that need the most help. And I get that you don't want to turn people away, and that's fine. But I do wonder, like, in terms of engaging with the 80 plus cohort, that must be quite challenging.
Through the mayor, staff were very supported in partnership with community organizations to listen longer, provide different ways of engaging with us. And I would like to also add age numbers can be arbitrary, depending on one's social circumstance, and factors that one's experiencing in their life. You might have a very different health situation at a younger age that some people only experience when they are at a mature point in life. So we tried to gather.
I see that the training that you have, or that you're engaging with people with that kind of training, would ensure that once they're there, they would get, you know, the chance to engage. But what I'm concerned about is the people who aren't showing up at engagement, because they are the ones most in need. They are the ones socially isolated. They are the ones that have disabilities. Like, how do we reach them?
Through the mayor, staff connected with organizations with the intent of reaching a diverse array of participants. So staff identified the need to reach older adults that may be typically underrepresented in these processes or harder to reach. So through different scales, some events were smaller than others. We were able to reach a varying diverse number of participants that had different mobility or physical impairments, cognitive impairments, and coming from different walks of life and engaging with our programs and service landscapes in very different ways.
Okay, so you're confident in through the help and support that you're getting from the community organizations that we are in fact reaching those people to provide us with the input?
Through the mayor, we have been receiving direction from community organizations to provide those opportunities that are appropriate and available for folks.
Yeah.
So we've done our best, but phase 2 is not fully complete. So if we receive feedback that we need to reach out more, we can see what is available.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, because I know that you know, people join groups because they're that kind of person, but the ones who are socially isolated don't. So they're not connected to these community groups, and therefore they're not going to be part of it by kind of default. So I don't have any suggestions, but I'm just concerned about it. And then I just wanted to kind of, you know, alert you to it so that we can be cognizant of that as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pope. I see no further speakers on the matter. Prepared to call the question on receipt. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. Thank you for the presentation. Last item up for consideration this evening is item 813. This is environmental policies and replanting of trees.
Mayor Little.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on the matter? Second by Councillor Hanson. Councillor Murray, your comments, please.
Thank you. I brought this forward. I attempted to bring it forward with some recommendations, but it's so complex that I felt like we just really needed a discussion. And probably when the new council's put in place in the fall is going to be obviously the best option as time is fleeting. But I'm becoming more and more concerned about the loss of the urban tree canopy within the boundaries of the district. You know, the developments that we're looking at are becoming denser and denser and pushing to the very broad outreaches of the property lines where few, if any, trees can coexist in the area. Street trees are replacing firs and pines and cedars, in my opinion, a little bit too quickly. And I don't think we're really seeing or understanding the impacts of these changes that we're experiencing. You know, in going through our OCP, under our biodiversity section, we talk about biodiversity as the foundation of the ecological services we depend on. Oxygen, purification of the air and water, et cetera. The loss of habitat fragmentation, and invasive species are some of the key threats to our local biodiversity. And Mayor Little, you supported the addition to our financial plan to look at some of those invasive species, but ultimately it's just a drop in the bucket to what we really need to protect. The district's objective is to protect our forested character and enhance the health of our trees and soils. Trees in parks, riparian areas, street and trees on private property are all part of the urban forest and help improve community livability and ecological health. These were significant sections in our official community plan, and I see little evidence of them even mentioned in many of the reports that come forward. I note that the report in regards to the Metro Vancouver project tonight talked about the replanting of trees, but indeed the development permit for the Lillooet project didn't mention anything about the replanting or the loss of trees on a piece of parkland that was rezoned for housing. This is where I think we should be really concerned. Under 9.4 natural hazards, the presence of steep slopes, creeks, ravines, floodplains, and forested lands, combined with occasional extreme weather activity, make some areas of the district susceptible to natural hazards, including landslide, debris flow, flood, and wildfire. Now, if that's not a section in our OCP that is outdated and that has not been reviewed in many, many years, I don't know what is. These are not occasional events. These are regular events where we are having to significantly fund infrastructure that, quite frankly, has not worked every time we've replaced it. The Gallant Creek culvert comes to mind. We replaced it twice and increased a pipe underneath a Gallant, which triggered, the expansion and the revamp of Gallant Avenue, and it still flooded. It didn't matter what we did. I hear Steve Ono in the background saying, we can't hold back Mother Nature anymore. I'll take my other 2 minutes. So I think that we need to have a conversation, and I hope that the items that I've put in this report, we're not limiting ourselves to, but we need to understand how the hard surface that we're expanding in our community and the loss of the urban tree canopy, and certainly Metro is measuring the loss on a regular basis throughout the region, what that impact is going to have on our communities going forward. We've talked about Hastings Creek. We've made a recommendation to decommission sections of Hastings Creek against the wishes of our community. And I think we have to ask ourselves, why are we having to decommission Hastings Creek? What has happened to Hastings Creek over the years that the volume and the amount of water that's coming into that area has made it so it's not safe anymore? What have we done? What has man done? What has decision makers done to increase the impacts to these areas that we love so much and have protected in the past, but maybe don't talk about as much as we need to as we're moving forward in the future? Years ago, when we saw 1,000% increase in building permits in the Upper Capilano, the community was very vocal at coming out and criticizing council for these massive basements that were being put into the single family neighborhoods and the impact of the tree canopy within these neighborhoods. Is this my second? Yeah. And it was a real loss. And now 15, 16 years later, we're pulling the basements out of the ground. Well, the damage is done. It's too late. And I would say, let's not have more Hastings Creeks. Let's not have to decommission more areas because we're making decisions that we don't really understand and we don't understand the impact to. So I hope you'll support having a conversation, not limiting it to these issues that I've raised, but let's have a discussion on the environment and an understanding of how the environment and the built urban form of our community are connected, and make sure that the decisions we're making are the responsible ones going forward.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Murray. Councillor Beck.
I think I was the seconder, wasn't
Sorry, Councillor Hanson.
it? Go ahead. Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Mary, for bringing this motion. I certainly appreciate your commitment to this important issue. Urban tree canopy is very central to the issue of livability in the district. And for many of us, trees are what make our district special. So I do look forward to that discussion. It appears that it will be after the upcoming election. So if I am fortunate enough to be returned, I look for it. If you're fortunate enough to be returned, Councillor Mary, I look forward to that discussion at this table with whomever it is that's been elected. But the issue of protection of our tree canopy in the face of the various development issues that are outstanding is obviously very critical to North Vancouver residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Beck.
Thank you, Mary Little, and thanks, Councillor Murray, for the report. I see a lot of issues here. I'm just not sure how we're going to tackle those in one workshop. And I'll likely support the recommendation because I appreciate the topic and the thought that's gone into it. At the same time, the district has strong tree protections, probably some of the strongest in the region. And previous councils have spent considerable time reviewing and workshopping this topic. I know in the last term of council, we had at least one workshop on our tree protection bylaw. But I do absolutely agree it's an important one, particularly the urban tree canopy. But we need to have an understanding of how it's being measured and if canopy loss is really at a dangerous or critical point. I'm not sure that it is, although I think it's something we need to look at. But I guess my only caution here is that there's quite a long list of topics that could be covered. I'm not sure that one workshop is going to be focused enough conversation. I really would want to make sure that we're getting some useful information out of it rather than just trying to cover all of these things.
Thank you, Councillor Beck. Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Your Worship. In the term before this term, we started doing some work on our natural environment and assessing things like tree canopy. And West Vancouver was going to start taking almost like a natural asset inventory was going to be done. And they were going to decide how to score things so that we could kind of figure out where we were losing, where we were gaining. I would just like to suggest, I haven't heard anything since that first term. So I'd just like to suggest that when this comes back, maybe that's something we could discuss as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, just my comments on the matter. I mean, I'm a big fan of our forests and our urban tree canopy. I talk about it on the regular. When I talk about the district of North Vancouver as a whole, I say it's a safe, clean, and compassionate community with a close connection to nature. I grew up in the Blue Ridge Seymour area, grew up with big forests around and a block away from trails. And I absolutely do not take it for granted that doesn't happen without good policies in place to protect our environmental spaces. I do also worry a little bit about sort of a progressive phobia where people are concerned that we haven't taken steps in the right direction over the years because they acknowledge that we want to push even further. So acknowledging what's been done well is a challenge sometimes. This entire community was clear-cut logged from 1860 out to about 1920. If you look at any of the pictures of Lynn Valley at the turn of the century, it is a moonscape. It is just wiped out. And so we have been rebuilding that canopy in our community over the last 100 years. And I know that there's still some old growth out there. It's pretty limited pockets in our community. The vast majority of our community is second growth. But we have made great strides towards protecting space on the North Shore. We have one of the highest ratios of protected park space per capita of anybody in the Lower Mainland. We've just recently put forward another protected park and forest for consideration. And I just want to say, we have to acknowledge all of the good things that have been done in this process. It doesn't mean there isn't more that we can consider. It's just we're not in a crisis situation. We have about 6 to 7 million trees in the district of North Vancouver, the vast majority of which are healthy and in good shape. We have a very significant problem with the hemlocks in our community. Hemlocks have about a 100-year lifespan, and since the clear cut was done a little over 100 years ago, a lot of the hemlocks that came in after that time are reaching end of life, and they've become fairly unstable. And so we have to keep an eye on that. But our cedars and Douglas firs have not been more robust in the last 100 years in our community. Now, we have to be aware of the impact on certainly on slopes and with rare local breeds of trees, and make sure that we have policies that are still supporting healthy stands in our community. I still generally hold the view, though, that that's something we mostly have to do on public land. On private land, it's a challenge to be able to enforce that. And I know that that's always the desire, is that whenever we have a new development come forward in the community, we must protect the trees on the site. It's a challenge. We have to do, our job is to do a better job of protecting it on public land, in my humble opinion. And so I'm looking forward to having the discussion. Always love to talk about our natural environment and trees in our community. If reelected, thank you very much. I appreciate the, yes, what would you say? So fortunate to be reelected, or I don't know. But I do want to make sure that it's focused on practical solutions and practical things that we can pursue within our policies going forward. Councillor Ma.
Thank you. As has been said, trees and our natural spaces are what make North Van such a special place to live, and for me, raising my family here. I also share some of Councillor Back's concerns that this is a big issue. And that doesn't mean we shy away from it, but it's a big issue. And some things that come to mind, and I was looking to see if it was up there, is the issue of hazard trees has been popping up in the communities. So, there might be some trees that need to be removed, and we need to look at that too. And maybe the mayor can help me with this. Last week, when we were talking with the disc golf group, there's a program that kind of clears away some of the trees in certain areas. Mayor Little, what program is that? It's Fire Smart, right? So
the Wildfire Fuel Management Program.
Right. So, there's consideration there. And then there was something else that also can affect the trees in our community. It's the invasive species, especially ivy. So we need to tackle a lot of things. So it's great that we're looking at this, but I can see it getting quite big, and we just need to manage expectations there too. So great. So thank you for this. I will support it as well, but this is probably the starting point to a bigger discussion. Thank you.
Councillor Pope.
Thank you very much. Just to add to the discussion, I would like to also see, as part of that, the subject of increasing fees for removing large diameter trees. I think that they could be much, much higher, so that developers don't look at it as just the cost of doing business, that it actually might hurt if they take down large diameter trees. And I just wanted a fact check on a statement that's made in this report. It's under reason for report. If staff could please confirm, there's a reference to the social housing projects that were discussed tonight as being previously zoned parkland. Is that correct?
Your worship,
Mr. Milburn.
the Riverside site was designated for residential, but zoned PRO when it was changed to accommodate a CD zone to allow the Metro Vancouver project. In the case of Lillooet, it was formerly an I4 zone, which permits waste disposal, mining, and soils screening. And that zone was then converted over to a residential CD zone.
So not parkland.
It was I4, an industrial zone. It's mainly a holding zone of lands owned by the district. We typically don't see them developed for mine purposes. They maybe were historical borrow pits, but that's what its zoning was previously, I4.
So not parkland.
They acted as park recreation and open space, PRO.
So, Your Worship, just to clarify, the question was Lillooet. So in the case of Lillooet, it was I4 zoned, and the designation was commercial residential mixed use in the official community plan in 2011. And then there was, I believe that was the portion to the northern portion of the property was commercial residential mixed use, which is the portion that was converted over to this residential affordable housing project on Lillooet.
Thank you.
Having a little trouble hearing you, but I think I got all of it there. But
Sorry, I apologize.
I think I got all
I can
of
repeat it, but
just next time I will be a little louder. But I don't think anyone's disputing that both of those sites were previously greenfield sites. I think that was kind of the point that was trying to be made there. Councillor Pope, floor is yours. Any additional comments? Okay. I see no further speakers on the matter. Prepare to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Council, any reports this evening? Mr. CAO, no? Okay. Would any members of council like to make a report? This is what happens when you have regular meetings every Monday. We don't get caught. We don't have to do a big catch up. You'll miss it when it's gone. All right. Well, we've completed the business of this evening's meeting. I'll accept adjournment. Accepted. Thank you very much. Thank you to our staff for preparing the reports for our consideration. Thank you, members of the public, for sticking through us with the evening, and thank you to members of council for your important decisions tonight. Everybody have a fantastic evening. Good night.